of a sudden, here come the Democrats. Some special election victories throughout the country. This happened at the end of last week. First of all, New York's 9th State Assembly District. That's for their, obviously, state assembly. Well, this is a district that's been Republican as far as anybody can remember, or as long as anybody can remember. And Trump won it very comfortably in November. 61% of the voters went for Trump. In fact, Trump beat Hillary Clinton by 23 points. So why am I even telling you this? Oh, no, look at this. Christine Pellegrino, Democrat, beat her Republican opponent with a stick. She beat him 58-42. So I'm going to do that math for you. Trump won it by 23. She won it by 16. That's a 39-point swing. That's an open-handed slap, boy. What are you going to do about it? So, now look, just by itself, you might not say it's anything, but in the context of a Montana race that was way closer than originally expected, a Kansas race way closer than expected, a Georgia race where the Democrat, I believe at this point, is more likely to win. That's Tom Price's old seat, Gingrich's old seat. Wolfpack ran a race in Connecticut for a state district, which was like this one, had been held by Republicans for as long as anybody could remember. The one in Connecticut was held for over 100 years, closed a 26-point lead there. The Republican did pull it out, but closing 26 points. These are gigantic differentials that are being closed. And in this case, this Republican district, for literally as long as recorded history in that district, has now become a Democratic seat. Now, I hear from Democrats all the time in Washington that in order to win those kind of seats, you have to have Republican light, a warmed-over corporate Democrat. So let's find out if that's what Pellegrino is. Oh, look at this. Turns out Pellegrino is a school teacher in Baldwin and a union activist. And she continued teaching during her campaign, so a real person, which was joined by hundreds of volunteers who knocked on doors in Massapequa, Babylon, West Islip, and Long Island South Shore. And she served as a delegate for the Democratic presidential candidate, Bernie Sanders, last year. A real person looking for real change. And even in a heavily Republican district, she wins. Because real people beat fake people all the time. Democrats, you might want to take note. So certainly Justice Democrats have. You'll find some real people looking for real change. Go to JustDemocrats.com. Now, Pellegrino was not, we're only working at the national level, Just Democrats are. Pellegrino was a state candidate. But let's give you more information on this, including, by the way, what happened in New Hampshire. So New York Times explains state races are also attracting attention, including Pellegrino's win and a state special legislative election in New Hampshire, where the Democrat, Edith DeMare, defeated Matthew Plesch, a Republican in Carroll County. Trump captured that district by 7 points in November. So these Trump leads are not surviving in these heavily Republican districts. So that might be a bellwether for the Republican chances in 2018 overall at the congressional level. And it also is a sign to Democrats on what kind of Democrats you should run if you actually want to win. So to that point, let me give you one more fact about Pellegrino. In March, Democrats in Suffolk County, led by Richard Schaefer, were set to nominate a different candidate in this special election, but the Working Families Party saw Ms. Pellegrino as an inspiring choice who could win and push local Democrats to support her. So, Working Families Party is a progressive party in New York, and sometimes they co-endorse Democratic candidates. In this case, they did the right thing, and they said, no, don't go with another corporate Democrat. Right-wingers are not interested in big business Democrats that work for their donors. That doesn't work at all. Go for Pellegrino. She's a real person, and she was a Bernie Sanders delegate, and she's honest and uncorrupted. And lo and behold, yes, even right-wing voters like that. So I think it is a bellwether of some sorts, not just as a warning to the Republicans that Trump is unpopular, but also as a warning to the Democrats. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a warning. It could be a welcome sign for the Democrats. That if you run real people who are not corrupted by donor money, you have a much better chance of winning, including in red districts. or maybe even most especially in red districts. What's in TYT membership? Not going to tell you. Only one way to find out. TYTnetwork.com/join.
A winner, Ferrari, whose profit margin was 29.5% in Q1. Now think about this. Apple's margin is 31.6% and Hermes is 36.5%. Ferrari, Hermes, and Apple. How did a tech company make it on this esteemed list? Mr. Jobs was in fact a genius, and his genius didn't involve products as much as it involved marketing, and he realized something very important about the world of luxury. Specifically, it was a great business, and rather than being the best house in a shitty neighborhood, hardware tech, he decided to become the best house in the best neighborhood, luxury. What other tech products have print ads in Vogue, are sold in shiny glass temples under flattering lights where customers can be seen and admired by others, with product launches supported by supermodels? Apple is a luxury brand, not a tech product, and as a result, the company has achieved literally the impossible, what no other firm has achieved, and that is they are the low-cost producer, yet the premium price product. This is a company that has the margins of Ferrari with the production volumes of Toyota and is generating more profit every quarter than Amazon has done in double their entire history. A winner, the fastest growing retail stock. Ulta, who's grown faster than Amazon. What is the beauty retailer's secret weapon? Omnichannel retail. People who shop both online and offline spend 2.5 times more than those who just use one channel. While the beauty retailer grew online sales 63% in the fourth quarter, Ulta also drew customers to physical stores with services including facials and sampling, and plans to open 100 more locations this year. As women spend more on beauty products than clothing now, Ulta boasts the broadest brand assortment across price categories, as well as a loyalty program that accounts for more than 90% of sales. The loyalty program also lets the retailer collect massive amounts of data on its consumers. Similar to Amazon, Ulta has leveraged user data to improve and personalize the online customer experience, but they've also taken advantage of an asset that people think is a liability: stores. Consumers go to stores not for products, but for people, specifically expertise. Winner or loser, Microsoft. Actually, they're a winner, but we wanted to build suspense in this episode. Microsoft still powers 90% of desktop computers. When Microsoft launched Windows 10 2 years ago, the company predicted that the operating system would be installed on 1 billion devices within 2 to 3 years. They've only reached 500 million, however, and daily installs have started to decline. If the Microsoft phone had not failed, Microsoft would likely be the most powerful company on earth. Their diversified revenue, however, likely makes them the least vulnerable of all the big tech companies. Is there a fifth horseman? If there is, it's probably Microsoft. The key decision for Apple was opening stores. The key decision for Microsoft, ray of light for Madonna to operate that operating system. I saw Lady Gaga at Coachella, not because I'm 48, because I'm level 48, which is much more badass. Actually, I'm level 52. But I go to Coachella, I see Lady Gaga, Lady blah blah, strike a pose, Madonna, you and me, we're taking this shit down. Subscribe
Alright, I've got another Jeremy Corbyn story for you guys. Last week I told you he was closing in on Theresa May, and it put a huge dent in her lead. I'm going to tell you more about that in a second, but first I'd like to remind you that about a year ago I tweeted out saying I'm going to double down on my prediction from 3 days ago. Jeremy Corbyn will be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Doesn't matter when the elections are held. So I was, of course, referring to the next time there would be a public election where the voters would get the vote. And if you go back and find that tweet and you look at the replies, you'll see that about 70% of them say, don't know anything about UK politics. Jeremy Corbyn has no chance whatsoever. It doesn't really matter. The video we put up from last week talking about how he's closing the lead, same exact tweets. Oh, no way, not Corbyn. And it's all over the press. I was just in the UK, and the headlines are like, shock poll, fear that Corbyn is closing in. Why is that a fear? Gee, I wonder which side they're on. Anyway, here's one from the Sydney Morning Herald. Of course, that's from the UK. From Australia, but they're reporting in on this. Most, such as the University of Kent's Matthew Goodwin, are completely dismissive. He will, quote, happily eat my new Brexit book if Labour poll 38%, let alone beat the Conservatives, which would require a much higher figure, he said on Monday. So they are, to this late date, unconvinced, don't care, even on Monday, saying, I'm going to eat my book it's the Brexit book. Remember how we were so sure that Brexit wouldn't happen? I wrote a book about that, and now I'll eat it. Okay, all right, let's see what happens. So remember, Theresa May had a 24-point lead, and last week I reported to you that he went down to 13 points, and then right before we did the show, another poll came out, and it went down to 9 points. And how are we doing now? A couple of days later, at the beginning of this week, a new poll out, Corbyn versus May. 43% Conservative Party, that's Theresa May's party. Labour Party, 37%. I'll do the math for you. That's only 6 points. Here comes Corbyn. There's a snap election. There's almost no time to campaign. To close it from 24 points to 6 points in this window, that's crazy. Here comes Corbyn. Okay. Now let's look at Theresa May's numbers. Is this campaign going well for her? I hear from the establishment, she's brilliant, really smashing, she's wonderful. Way better than Corbyn. We fear Corbyn might be closing in. Let's see if the British citizens agree. According to The Guardian, more than a third of the voters, 37%, say their opinion of the Prime Minister is more negative than at the start of the campaign, against 25% who say it is more positive. And part of the reason for that is Theresa May did the same exact move that Hillary Clinton did. Filled with hubris, she put out a manifesto saying, I'm going to hit senior citizens. I'm going to hit them pretty hard. We got to get the money somewhere. Really? In the middle of an election, you're going to put out a manifesto like that? Well, I appreciate her honesty, but that did not go over well. Meanwhile, Labour Party put out their manifesto, and it had things that would appeal to a lot of British citizens, and not just a few. And in fact, their slogan is for the many, not the few. And that polled really well. In fact, now we go to Corbyn. The opposite is true for Corbyn, with 39% saying they have a more positive view of Corbyn, compared with only 14% who now have a more negative view. And then there's more good news. Corbyn also leads by 13 points among voters under 50 and is tied with May among women. And again, the establishment said, oh no, Theresa May is going to win among women, and so this is easy. And they keep telling us that things can't happen, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, they happen. Look, the reason I predicted the Corbyn victory is, for those of you saying you're not an expert on UK politics, I hear you, brothers and sisters, and I'm not here to argue about that. What I'm telling you is, and what I've said from day one, is that people are looking for populist candidates, whether they're on the right or the left, and they can't stand the establishment. That's why Brexit won. That's why Trump won. That's why Bernie Sanders closed a 60-point lead in a short period of time on Hillary Clinton. Her name recognition won the day at the end, but he was the better candidate. We told you, and that's what it turned out to be. Now Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in all of America by a significant margin, left or right, as long as they're not establishment. So now more from Robert Kuttner, the American Prospect. If the election were held today, the governing Tory party would lose seats. They thought they were going to pick up seats. That's why they held the snap election. They thought they were so clever. Labour is in striking distance of winning a majority, and the momentum appears to be with Labour. Now, there was the bombings in Manchester, and again, the establishment media told us, Corbyn handled very poorly. Of course, what happens is when there's bombing here, you have to be more barbaric than your opponent and say, we should do random bombings in the Middle East and get more involved in the Middle East because that's such a great idea. Kuttner explains, Corbyn drew barbs from Conservatives when he said that the British support for ill-considered Mideast wars had increased the risk of terrorist attack. But it turned out that most Britons agreed with Corbyn. And when I saw him say that, and I was in the UK at the time, I thought, that's smart. That'll work. Every newspaper at the time, no, terrible idea, what an idiot, what a schmuck, etc. I don't think they use the word schmuck in the UK. Anyway, so I want to give you two quick parts of that speech. The first part, people don't talk about enough. Here's was the first part of how he responded to the Manchester bomb.
We will reverse the cuts to our emergency services and police. Once again in Manchester, they proved to be the best of us. Austerity has to stop at the accident and emergency ward and at the police station door. We cannot be protected and cared for on the scene.
See, this is part of a logical populist campaign. You say, hey, you want to be protected? Let's spend more on security. Doesn't that make sense? Police. I don't mean security bombing a country all the way across the world. I mean actual police here. Of course, that's popular. There was sustained applause for that line. Now to the controversial foreign policy statement. Here, watch.
We will also change what we do abroad. Many experts, including professionals in our intelligence and security services, have pointed out the connections between wars that we've been involved in or supported and fought in other countries, such as Libya, and terrorism here at home.
Now, they said that was controversial, and they said, how dare you say that? Are you blaming us? He went on to explain the rest of the speech. Of course, I'm not blaming us, and it doesn't justify killing innocent civilians, the kids that were killed, etc. there. But let's rethink our foreign policy. We keep going and punching them in the face, and then when they punch back, we get surprised. He's like, so I don't think it's a good idea that we keep doing interventionism. So, most important thing is not what my opinion is or his opinion is, but the opinion of the British citizens. So now you go to this poll, they ask them, who do you agree with? 65% of Britons said that wars the UK has supported or fought are responsible, at least in part, for terror attacks against the UK. Only 25% said the opposite and 10% they didn't know. That's a giant lead for Corbyn's position. Yet again, for the millionth time in a row, the establishment is wrong, and they can't see straight. They're in their bubble, and they go, no, it couldn't be. Now, back to Kuttner. And he makes the same point that, as I told you, I've been making now for years when it comes to Sanders, Trump, Brexit, etc. The point is that a great deal of the mass disaffection, he explains, from politics and conventional politicians can go right or it can go left. Sanders or Trump, Le Pen or Mélenchon, Brexit or Corbyn. Exactly right. So who's going to decide this election? Well, the young are, because Labour has 2/3 of the 18 to 24-year-olds, and Conservatives have 2/3 of the over 65s. So if more senior citizens show up, well, then Conservative Party will win. Theresa May will remain Prime Minister. If more young voters show up, then Corbyn can win and shock the world one more time. Here comes Corbyn. I know what you're thinking. Cenk, what do I get if I'm a Young Turks member? Well, I'm glad you asked. Not only do you get the whole 2-hour show on demand anytime you want and free, but you get 6 podcasts on top. What are they? Join up, find out. They're amazing. You're going to love these shows. TYTnetwork.com/join.
Growing up, my family has always had imports, never really considered driving a domestic car. Just normal maintenance is what we've had to do for it, and with 130,000 miles, I can't complain. I will absolutely get another Ford.
Ford, rides you could count on.
Now, Cory Booker was on TV recently, and they were talking about impeachment, and then later Jared Kushner. Now, his thoughts on impeachment are not wild and crazy, but they are reserved. The Kushner stuff's a lot more interesting. But first, let me give you context here by showing you his answer on whether they should go towards Trump's impeachment.
Well, I just want to tell you right now, I'm not going to rush to impeachment. I think we need to deal with this in a very sober way. This can't be a relitigation of an election that is now passed. This has to be about an objective assessment about the facts that are going on right now. And all I know is I'm very satisfied that we have an independent investigation now going on through the Justice Department, as well as both houses seem to be moving not as fast as I'd like, but moving towards independent congressional investigations. We need to make sure that the United States of America is protected. Nobody disagrees with the fact that the Russians attacked us in terms of their cyber attacks, and we need to get to the bottom of what happened. And if there were Americans that colluded with the Russians to undermine our democratic processes, they should be held to account.
So, look, I don't mind that point overall. I think that you talk about impeachment if you have evidence that he, in fact, worked with the Russians, and that's how it works. You have to see if he actually broke a law. I think there is now pretty good evidence that's actually in the public about obstruction of justice. I have read reporting that the Democrats are afraid to say impeachment because of what the Republicans will do. But let's give Booker the benefit of the doubt on that. So he's now, of course, the senator from New Jersey, and for the establishment Democrats, he's considered one of the leading candidates for 2020. Like, here's a guy who takes a lot of donor money, works for the establishment, but it seems like a real progressive. Yeah, okay. So now, all right. So you want to say that on impeachment? But now, when we go to Kushner, we just found out that Trump's son-in-law is a person being investigated by the FBI for his connections to Russia. Now, that's deeply concerning. But more importantly, he asked for a private line of communication with the Russians, with the Kremlin, and he asked that it be at the Russian embassy. That's mental. So if that reporting is true, of course he should lose his security clearance. Who says I don't want American intelligence looking into my conversations with the Kremlin? I'd rather do it at the Kremlin, at the Russian embassy. It seems like you're working for them, not for us. I mean, that is deeply concerning. And obviously something that I imagine a Democratic senator, one who is supposed to be one of the leaders of the Democrats, would be very concerned about. But instead we got this answer.
In the meantime, while there's an investigation, should Jared Kushner's security clearance be revoked or at least suspended?
Well, again, I think we need to first get to the bottom of it. He needs to answer for what was happening at the time. It raises very serious concerns for me. That could be a potential outcome that I seek, but I want to understand, at least hear from Jared Kushner as well as the administration about what was exactly going on there.
Whoa, let's tap the brakes here. Let's be sobered. Again, I want to hear from Jared Kushner. I thought that was curious. I was a little surprised by that. Now, I think Cory Booker is an establishment Democrat who takes a lot of donor money and largely does what they ask him to do with a progressive veneer. But Kushner, I mean, that's Trump's son-in-law. Why are you defending him? That's kind of weird. Oh, then you find out. It turns out Kushner is one of his donors. Let's go to David Sirota at the International Business Times explaining Kushner and other donors affiliated with Kushner companies delivered more than $41,000 to Booker's Senate campaign in 2013, according to data compiled by PoliticalMoneyline.com. Politico reported that Ivanka Trump hosted a fundraiser for Booker during that election. So when he says, I want to hear from Jared Kushner, it's a good reason for that. When he hears from Jared Kushner, sometimes it's in the form of a $41,000 check. We're not done yet, though. In 2009, Jared Kushner also gave $20,000 to Booker's Newark mayoral ticket, Booker Team for Newark, New Jersey campaign finance records show. And just such a inside the beltway move as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump showed when Clinton attended Trump's wedding. That year, back in 2009, Booker attended the wedding of Kushner and Ivanka Trump. Well, if you attended their wedding and they're top donor for you, and then of course you want to hear them about, hey, buddy Jared, what's up? You got any more checks for me? No, when I go on TV, I'll tell them, hey, let's be sobered here. So nice and easy. I want to hear from Jared first. This is what we're talking about when we say you work for the donors and not the voters. Now, if you cared about Democratic voters, you wouldn't do Jared Kushner any favors at all. Anyone with a modicum of sense politically would know that. But if you work for the donors, that's a different story, especially if Kushner is one of your donors. I also want to ask you guys a poll. Is Cory Booker a progressive? Now, to some of you, that might be super obvious. In Washington, I think it would probably be obvious the other way, but I'm curious. That's why we ask. So, TYTnetwork.com/Booker, and I want to see. Do you guys think that he is a real progressive, or just a progressive? Don't worry about real. Is Cory Booker progressive? And again, Washington would be a landslide. Of course he is. With our audience, I don't know. It might be a landslide in another direction, but I'm curious what you guys think. You just watched a video from the Young Turks. Did you know that there's a live 2-hour show every day, and that if you're a member of the Young Turks, you can get that on demand anytime you want without ads? Plus the post game just for members, plus aggressive progressives, plus old school, plus so many other network shows. Go right now, tytnetwork.com/join. On the Young Turks, we covered Standing Rock a lot. Jordan Sheraton was there over 7 times. Wes Clark Jr., Michael Wood led the veterans for Standing Rock. When Wes came back, he told us about this company called Tiger Swan and how they had private contractors monitoring the protesters. And some of the things that he reported seemed unbelievable. Well, turns out now they are confirmed by The Intercept. The Intercept has done a brilliant piece with, first of all, a leak that they got from a contractor at Tiger Swan, plus public documents that they found to find out who these guys are, how they were used, and their unbelievable perception of protesters and how they spread that perception, not only the company involved, but most importantly to law enforcement agencies. So, Tiger Swan is hired by Energy Transfer Partners to do security and to do analysis of the protesters, or what they call them, the water protectors is what they call themselves. That is not what Tiger Swan calls them. So, let's go to the Interception reporting. Internal Tiger Swan communications describe the movement as, quote, an ideologically driven insurgency with a strong religious component, and compare the anti-pipeline water protectors to jihadist fighters. What? That's insane. Now, the strong religious component that they're talking about is that the water protectors would go, and their main form of protest was praying. So they were peaceful, and in fact, the local authorities and the private contractors, in the beginning, before cameras showed up, would say, "Oh, these are violent protesters and causing trouble." And then our cameras showed up and showed that they were not at all violent. That what they were doing was praying. Now Tiger Swan takes the praying and turns it and goes that it has a strong religious component and compares them to an insurgency and jihadist fighters. That's so mental. It's unbelievable. But if you hire guys who are military guys who worked in the Middle East, then, you know, if all you have is a hammer, all you see is nails. If you're bringing guys who've been fighting jihadis, all they see is jihadis. Even when they're perfectly innocent American citizens doing the most American thing you can do, which is protesting your government and its actions, in this case, to support Energy Transfer Partners as they built that oil pipeline. Now, one report dated February 27, 2017 states that since the movement, quote, generally followed the jihadist insurgency model while active, we can expect that individuals who fought for and supported it to follow a post-insurgency model after its collapse. So they frame everything from this perspective. They call innocent protesters who are sitting there praying jihadis because they're praying. And then they say, well, look, that movement did not win. Of course, they did get permission to build a pipeline from the Trump administration. But don't worry, Energy Transfer Partners, you have to keep hiring us, paying us a lot of money, because we've got to track these jihadis throughout the country. And they are. So let me give you a little bit of background on Tiger Swan. Based in Apex, North Carolina, Tiger Swan was created by retired Army Colonel James Reese during the height of the war in Iraq. What they want to do is take some of that lucrative defense contractor money. At the time, Blackwater was getting most of the contracts, and this was very lucrative stuff, and a lot of times no bid. So they're like, hey, if you're a connected insider and you had a bunch of guys who'd already fought in Iraq, you just turn around, pay them a lot more money than the U.S. military can pay them. You get them on your side, and then you turn to the government, and nobody even checks defense contracts. You get millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of dollars sometimes, and it's a good racket, and we just bill the American taxpayer. So Tiger Swan now has an estimated 350 employees and maintains offices in Iraq, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, India, Latin America, and Japan. Now, these privatized defense contractors have been unleashed within the United States. What are the results? Well, let's go to internal Tiger Swan documents as reported by The Intercept. While we can expect to see continued spread of the anti-DAPL diaspora, aggressive intelligence preparation of the battlefield and active coordination between intelligence and security elements are now a proven method of defeating pipeline insurgencies. So they continue to call innocent water protectors insurgents. They're not insurgents. They're Americans. But they have all these offices in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, etc. So all he sees is insurgents. And they want to scare the hell out of Energy Transfer Partners. Anybody who else hires them, oh, you need security. These are guys who are like jihadis. There's no violence on their side. Again, we showed video on the Young Turks. You can see it on TYT Politics right now, where they say, oh, the water protectors started fires. And you see actually the cops that fire the materials that actually land on the water protector side and then start a fire. So it's just the insinuation that they're violent is absolutely preposterous. And look at the way that they are describing the area where they're protesting as a battlefield. Okay, the leaked documents include situation reports prepared by Tiger Swan operatives in North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Illinois, and Texas between September 2016 and May 2017, and delivered to Energy Transfer Partners. So this is not just in North Dakota, it's in 5 different states. They offer a daily snapshot of the securities firm's activities, including detailed summaries of the previous day's surveillance targeting pipeline opponents, intelligence on upcoming protests, and information harvested from social media. The documents also provide extensive evidence of aerial surveillance and radio eavesdropping, as well as infiltration of camps and activist circles. So that's exactly what Wes Clark was talking about here on the Young Turks when he came back from Standing Rock. So, yeah, they're looking at the protesters on the ground. Yes, they're looking at their social media and tracking it, and as you see from the documents, ironically, religiously so. And then they've got the aerial footage from drones, but they also infiltrate, pretending to be protesters, and meanwhile collecting data on the people who are exercising their First Amendment rights. Included among the documents obtained via public records requests were daily intelligence updates developed by Tiger Swan that were shared with law enforcement officers, thus contributing to a broad public-private intelligence dragnet. In the internal situation reports, Tiger Swan operatives comment frequently about their routine coordination and intelligence sharing with law enforcement. Unfortunately, a lot of the law enforcement, including FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and a lot of the local sheriff's office, cooperate with these guys and coordinate with them. So then you don't even know who's working for you anymore. Because remember, these guys are private contractors. They work for the pipeline company. They don't work for us, the American citizens. The cops are supposed to work for us, the citizens. The FBI is supposed to work for us. We pay their salaries. But they go and turn around and merge the private and public, basically security interests, and all of a sudden they co-opt the guys that we're paying that are supposed to represent us and protect us, and all of a sudden those guys are working for the pipeline. That's not how our law enforcement is supposed to work. Now, there was only a few local police that stood up to Tiger Swan and said, no, thank you, we're not interested in that. Some counties in Iowa, actually, did not want to cooperate with Tiger Swan. They didn't think that was appropriate. They were absolutely right. Tiger Swan was very frustrated by that and talked about how they should do propaganda in those counties to convince the local police to work with them as law enforcement in other parts of the country were. Back to the Intercept's reporting here, the leaked situation reports indicate that during the company's first weeks working on the pipeline, Tiger Swan operatives met with law enforcement in Iowa, North Dakota, including Sheriff Dean Danzison of Mercer County, North Dakota, who, quote, agreed to sharing of information. You're not supposed to share information with private contractors. They don't work for the citizens. They work for a private pipeline. When the corporations merge with the government, that has a name, and it's an unfortunate name. We don't want to go in that direction. It's called fascism. Okay, by September 13th, the documents indicate Tiger Swan had placed a liaison inside the law enforcement, quote, Joint Operation Command in North Dakota. The fusion of public and private intelligence operations targeting water protectors was underway. So they co-opted the taxpayers' money and law enforcement to work against the citizens on behalf of private corporations. So, and by the way, do we all share the profits of those private corporations? No. They take all the profits and they give some of it to Tiger Swan, but they don't share any of it with us. And then we have to pay the cops that are basically working for them to oppress our own citizens. This is grotesque. The documents reveal the existence of a now persons of interest list, as well as other databases that include identifying information such as photographs and license plate numbers. They made a list of persons of interest. These are American citizens exercising their literally most American right there is. The right to protest, freedom of speech, and freedom of the press as well. And what do? They surveil them, they take their pictures, they take their license plates, and sometimes they would track them. One of the persons who was on the list said, yeah, every time I went out, there was always a car that was trailing me. And I thought, how did they even know that I was going to get in my car, that I was going to drive somewhere, let alone tail me? This is not how America is supposed to work. This is a police state, and it's not even a public police state. It's a private police state. Tiger Swan's internal reports and the intelligence briefings shared with law enforcement named dozens of DAPL opponents. Some of those named are well-known activists, while others have minimal public affiliation with the water protector movement. According to an October 16th document obtained via the records request, the security team's responsibilities included collecting, quote, information of an evidentiary level that would ultimately, quote, aid in prosecution of protesters. So not only are they collecting information on the protesters, but they then go over to law enforcement and say, now prosecute these guys. For what? For what? I don't know. It doesn't matter. They are persons of interest. They are insurgents, possible jihadis. So we're going to put these guys in jail because they're in the way of our profits. You really think this is how America is supposed to work? The same document describes plans to continue building person of interest folders in coordination with law enforcement intelligence. Tiger Swan situation reports also describe conversations between the company's operatives and FBI agents on at least 4 occasions. Hey, FBI, local law enforcement, you don't work for Energy Transfer Partners. You don't work for the Dakota Access Pipeline. You don't work for Tiger Swan. You work for us, American citizens. Anyone who's involved in this that is actually paid by the taxpayers, there should be a thorough investigation of, and they need to be explained how America works. We don't track our own citizens like we're East Germany, or we're like some sort of fascist state, and you don't do it on our dime. The situation reports also suggest that Tiger Swan attempted a counter-information campaign by creating and distributing content critical to protests on social media. They openly brag about how they claim the other side is doing propaganda. No, they're doing protests. That's what they're supposed to do. Then they go in and ironically do propaganda of their own. Tiger Swan does. And then they go, oh no, we're just countering their propaganda. What propaganda? They don't have any money. They could barely get there. They could barely maintain the campsite. What propaganda? You guys are the ones with the money that go and create fake accounts, which again the Intercept showed through the internal documents. So let me give you more on that. This article is only, this is now a part of the explanation from Tiger Swan, their report from October 3rd. They explain basically the Energy Transfer Partners, don't worry. This article, the one that they're referring to that was against the Dakota Access Pipeline, is only in the Huffington Post, but the expansion of the tribe's narrative outside of Native American community media outlets is of concern. Tiger Swan agents regularly describe protesters' account of events as propaganda. They're like, it's only in Huffington Post, but it could get worse. I mean, God, if they found out what we're actually doing up here, that would be terrible. I mean, we're just trying to counter their propaganda. And so, now those are real people that they were tracking. themselves, they set up fake accounts. Because what are you going to do? You're going to say, yeah, I'm Tiger Swan, I'm the new Pinkertons, and my job is to track innocent Americans and then try to get them arrested? You're not going to say that. So they came up with fake groups online called Defend Iowa. Well, Iowa didn't want your defense. And in fact, law enforcement in Iowa were among the few that stood up to you. So who the hell are you talking about saying defend Iowa? You're not from Iowa. You're a private contractor doing this for profit. Another group was Netizens for Progress and Justice. Well, doesn't that sound nice? Okay, they were for neither progress nor justice. One of the guys who was doing this, he started putting up these amateurish videos, and once The Intercept contacted them and saying, hey, don't you work for Tiger Swan? And you're pretending to be a regular citizen here with a different name, and you made up this group, so can you tell us all about that? Boom, radio silence. Not only does that guy not respond to The Intercept, all of a sudden they take down all the videos. Oh, really? What happened now? So, in fact, of course, you were doing propaganda, and you weren't doing it because you were interested in progress or justice. You were doing it for cold, hard cash. Okay. Here's another Tiger Swan situation report. They say of most concern when they were tracking the protesters were the, quote, Earth First magazines found on the camp. These magazines promote and provide tactics, techniques, and procedures for violent activity. Now, they have to say that the protesters are violent to justify all the money that Energy Transfer Partners is paying Tiger Swan for security and their analysis of security. So they go on to say, exploitation of ongoing native versus non-native rifts and tribal rifts between peaceful and violent elements is critical in our effort to delegitimize the anti-DAPL movement. In other words, their agitators that have now infiltrated the camps go and try to create rifts where rifts did not exist, to split up the groups, to get them to start fighting. And they mention that they're peaceful protesters. They go, well, let's get them started to fight. And they have no evidence to back up their violent element claim, but they have to, of course, say that. But isn't that amazing? They've spent money to make sure that they are pretending to be protesters, and so the next time you're in one of these protests, you also have to think, if someone's starting a fight, do they genuinely believe that? Is that their heartfelt opinion? Or are they a private contractor meant to create and sow chaos in your camps to split you up? So it is a tactic that they use, and now their internal documents confirm. Tiger Swan, this is more from their own documents, Tiger Swan collection teams will make contact with event organizers to embed within the structure of the demonstration to develop a trusted agent status to be cultivated for future collection efforts. Now, The Intercept explains Tiger Swan pays particular attention to protesters of Middle Eastern descent. The September 22nd Situation Report argues that the presence of additional Palestinians in the camp and the movement's involvement with Islamic individuals is a dynamic that requires further examination. What? That's a random Palestinian-American dude who went to go protest. The Intercept talked to him, and he's like, Palestinians care about indigenous rights, so I went to go support indigenous rights here in America. He's a Palestinian-American. They're like, oh my God, it's a Middle Easterner! Jihadi! You pay even more attention to him. He's brown. He's an Arab. And that's not the only guy that they tracked because they were Middle Eastern. Cass County Sheriff's Deputy Tanya Johnner emailed several other officers, including 2 FBI agents, with an overview of information provided by company intel. The information pertained to a woman whom Johnner labeled as, quote, a strong Shia Islamic, with, quote, a strong female Shia following. The woman had, quote, made several trips overseas. Now they're looking into where you went overseas. What does it mean to be a strong Shia Islamic? I don't know what that means. Did she do anything that is wrong? Did she do anything right? No. Do you have any history of that? If they had history of it, believe me, they would write it endlessly. No, the main charge against her is she's Shia Islamic. If all you have is a hammer, all you see is nails. So these guys have been private contractors all over the Middle East fighting what they call jihadis. God knows if those are actual jihadis or not. There certainly are real jihadis in the Middle East, and then others that look like them. And so they come here. What do they see? They see the same thing. Well, brown-skinned person, jihadi. That's a strong Islamic Shia Islamic over there. No, that's a Palestinian. Watch out for them. And the company intel is given to law enforcement. Now all of a sudden, law enforcement and the FBI are looking out for the Islamics. This is absolute insanity. Now, the end is not any better here. It gets worse. Tiger Swan consistently describes the peaceful demonstrators using military and tactical language more appropriate for counterterrorism operations in an armed conflict zone. At times, the military language verges on parody, as when agents write of protesters, quote, stockpiling signs, or when they discuss the, quote, caliber of paintball pellets. More often, however, the way that Tiger Swan discusses protesters as, quote, terrorists, their direct actions as, quote, attacks, and the camps as, quote, a battlefield, reveals how the protesters' dissent was not only criminalized, but treated as a national security threat. They're calling innocent American protesters terrorists. Then they're coordinating with law enforcement and building a list of persons of interest that they then target not only during active protests, but continue to this day. They're tracking those people. Why? They got to keep getting paid. So they keep telling energy transfer partners, no, this is a serious situation in the battlefield. And so keep paying me, and I'm going to keep tracking these terrorists that are actually exercising their First Amendment rights. A March 1 report states that protesters, quote, operational weakness allows Tiger Swan elements to further develop and dictate the battle space. This is gross. Sickening that this is happening inside the United States. In one internal report dated May 4th, this is way after the pipeline is approved, a Tiger Swan operative describes an effort to amass digital and ground intelligence that would allow the company to, quote, find, fix, and eliminate threats to the pipeline. An eerie echo of find, fix, finish, a military term used by special forces in the U.S. government's assassination campaign against terrorist targets. We can't let these lunatics operate like inside the United States as if the entire country is a battlefield and people who are exercising their rights are jihadis. So I don't know how we put an end to this, but the first and most important thing in the beginning is awareness. Brilliant job by the Intercept to find these documents. Here's another one. Tiger Swan operative says, everyone must be concerned of the lone wolf. Should we slip from that conscience, we may all be amiss. Meaning that there are no more protests, but I got to keep tracking every protester that I put on the list, and you got to keep paying me for that, because one of them could be a lone wolf. Well, lone wolf what? A lone wolf protester? That would make him an American. Now, by the way, of course, this is all for corporate interests. If you're a Tea Party protester, ain't nobody tracking you because you're pro-corporations. You come out there and go, yeah, take away our health care. Give it to private companies. Then nobody tracks you. Then you're happily doing propaganda for the private interests, and you don't go on any list. But if you actually care about citizens and trying to protect them, trying to protect the water, trying to protect your community, then you go on a list. In recent week, the company's role has expanded to include the surveillance of activist networks marginally related to the pipeline, with Tiger Swan agents monitoring, quote, anti-Trump protests from Chicago to Washington, D.C., as well as warning its client of growing dissent around other pipelines across the country. So now it gets broader and broader, and if you're protesting Trump, now you go on a different list. When will this end? This is how you lose a democracy. Final quote is from another Tiger Swan operative. They say, much like Afghanistan and Iraq, the fighting season will soon be here with the coming warm temperatures. No, North Dakota is not like Afghanistan or Iraq. There are no jihadis there. There are no insurgents. There are no terrorists. Those are us, American citizens. And it's not fighting season unless you make it fighting season. And if you treat us as some sort of insurgency and you militarize these corporations now, before they had runaway rights, they had corporate rights, then they wound up having human being constitutional rights, which is so insane. And now they are weaponized. these corporations have run absolutely amok. If we don't get control over them, they're going to get control over us. And now they've brought in these private contractors to literally get control over us with weapons and to take over our law enforcement and to declare us persons of interest and begin to figure out how they could put us in jail. This is disgusting. It's one of the most un-American things I have ever seen. You don't like ads? I hear you, brother. You know how you can avoid ads for the Young Turks? Become a Young Turks member. You get all the content ad-free. tytnetwork.com/join.
Please let us go. We can't do this.
Rated R. Donald Trump's handshakes have now become a worldwide controversy. Now, I want to show you videos of him shaking hands with world leaders and U.S. leaders, and you are going to love the videos. At the very end, I have his handshake with the leader of Japan. Well, every one of these videos is fantastic, but don't miss the one with the Japanese Prime Minister. Okay, so first, people are taking this seriously, as they should. The leader of France just said that he's had to plan out his handshake with Trump. And apparently Trudeau has as well. First of all, let's go to the analysts, and then I'll show you the videos. Sam Nunberg, who's a former Trump aide, so this is one of Trump's guys, says, I just think the president is very cognizant of the optics of what it looks like at these multilateral meetings with world leaders. And I even think the handshake is symbolic to the America First theme of the presidency and campaign. So it's not an accident, and it's not just goofball body language experts that are talking about this. It's his own allies saying, yeah, Trump loves to assert his manlyhood, and he thinks it's part of his campaign to shake hands in a manly way. I don't think it's manly at all. I think it's preposterous, as I think the videos will bear out. Well, here's Associate Professor of Psychology Frank Bernieri saying, it's an intimidation tactic. There are self-preservation strategies, and intimidation is one of the main ones. And again, you'll get to judge for yourself in the videos in a second. And then another expert, or Crystalisa from CNN, I should say, writes in, every interaction in public is a chance to assert dominance, to show that he's in charge, that he's the boss. Trump believes that perception creates reality. If he looks like the alpha male and the powerful leader, he becomes the alpha male and the powerful leader. I think he becomes a jackass, but let's find out together. So first, we're going to start, ironically, with the non-handshake. This was with Angela Merkel, the leader of Germany, and you'll see she's going to lean in because the reporters are asking for it. She's going to say, I think they want us to shake hands, and he refused to shake her hand. This is from a little while back. Let's watch.
They want the...
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Hello. Thank you, Thomas. I love that look from Merkel so much. I'm going to show it to you guys again. She leans in innocently thinking, oh, he forgot to shake hands. Like, I think they want us to shake hands. And then he's like, nope, not going to do it. And then she has that look of like, all right, whatever, dude. Here, watch it.
They want the...
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Hello. Thank you, Thomas. That's one of my favorite looks of all time. First, she's looking at him like, can this person understand things that are spoken to it? And then she looks and goes, I said, what am I going to do? The guy's a knucklehead. All right, I'm going to move forward with my life. Now, on the recent trip to Europe that just happened a couple of days ago, then we had the new president of France, Macron. And this is just such a great video. He's coming down the aisle. There's so much to analyze here. But watch all the things that Trump does and Macron does. Here, keep my mic up, and I'll do a play-by-play for you guys here. So he comes in, and he just handles his hands. Watch this. Pull it in, Donnie. And then Macron, you see him, like, literally block his hand, like, okay, dude, let go. Now, earlier, there was this long walk before Macron got to him. And all the world leaders are walking towards Macron, and Trump goes and randomly shakes King Philippe's hand from Belgium next to him. And King Philippe's like, what? Okay, because they're all walking. It doesn't make any sense. That's Trump signaling, like, I'm the one who shakes hands. And as they're coming forward, Trump does this, like, opens up his arms, like, hey, come here, Macron. Macron goes to Merkel first. Oh, no. And then he shakes two other hands, and that's why Trump's like, oh, yeah. Okay, so then Macron are going to and Trump are going to shake hands again. This time, it's a death grip to the end. Watch this.
Congratulations, Major. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Major. Thank you very much.
Macron would not let go until Trump finally was like, okay, dude, you're about to break my fingers. And Macron said, my handshake with him, it's not innocent. It's not the alpha and the omega of politics, but a moment of truth. One must show that we won't make little concessions, even symbolic ones. Meaning, we've had enough with this guy. He thinks he can push us around literally, as he pushed the leader of Montenegro the other day in Europe, pushed him out of the way. And so this goofball thinks that shaking hands is symbolic, means America first. He's like, oh, yeah, friends first. This is what foreign diplomacy has come to in the Trump administration. So Trudeau was also ready for him, and he had been briefed about the handshake process. So this was a little while back with the Canadian Prime Minister. Watch. Yeah, there you go. Okay, but that was the least harmful one. Okay, we that's fine, no problem. It's another one of my favorites. This is with the president of Tajikistan. Okay, now let's go. Guys, come back home here. One of the greatest of all time. This is his Supreme Court nominee at the time, Gorsuch, who's now a Supreme Court Justice. Watch.
Thank you very much.
They're both such weirdos, man. Trump with the constant, right? Giving that hand job that he gives. Anyway, and Gorsuch was like, no, I won't move. I won't move. Show it to me one more time. Can you go to Gorsuch again?
Thank you very much.
Weirdos. Now here he is doing it to Mike Pence.
Thank you to Mike Pence. Thank you.
All right, and finally, the leader of Japan in what has to be one of the most awkward handshakes of all time. Let's watch.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, everybody. Strong hands.
That had two of my favorite moments. First of all, the longest handshake in human history, and the constant patting of the hand on top. But then my favorite was the Prime Minister at then, and when it's over, finally, mercifully over, he's like, what am I going to do with this guy? Look, it's true. Trump clearly studied this and thinks that this is a way to assert his dominance, which I think is so sad. That's the kind of leadership you learn over a cassette tape. You know, like, oh, you know what you do next. You grab the guy's hand and you pull him towards you because that shows you that you're strong and you're not going to let anybody dominate you. You're an alpha male, yeah. Oh, please, that's so embarrassing. When I see people with their practiced handshakes and they come in and they're like, oh, this, right? I think, like, you're a goofball. That's not real leadership. That's a substitute for leadership, and a super sad substitute for strength or leadership. So, and by the way, that just about describes Donald Trump to a T. It's all optics, all goofy, all hiding deep insecurity, and he's got no substance at all. All he has is this super awkward handy that he does. You just watched the video from the Young Turks. Did you know that there's a live 2-hour show every day, and that if you're a member of the Young Turks, you can get that on demand anytime you want without ads? Plus the post game just for members, plus Aggressive Progressives, plus Old School, plus so many other network shows. Go right now, tytnetwork.com/join.
We have a long history of Fords in our family. I'm one of 7 kids, and we've all driven Fords. All of our first cars were Fords because they're reliable and it drives really smooth. Ford must be doing something right.
Ford, rides you can count on.
The Washington Post is reporting about how Donald Trump likes to get his intelligence briefings. Now, there's 17 intelligence agencies throughout the federal government, and the heads of those synthesize their findings and give it to the presidents. Now, normally rather thick folder because there's a lot of intelligence in the world. There's a lot of countries, there's a lot of foreign policy issues, and it's oftentimes a mess. And I've told you in the past, based on past reporting, that Donald Trump likes to synthesize to one piece of paper. All the world's problems in one piece of paper. Plus, we've told you in the past that he likes maps and graphics. Well, here's a new story where his top intelligence officials basically confirm that in comical terms. I love it. Mike Pompeo, who is a CIA director, says, well, Trump likes, quote, killer graphics. By the way, when you're talking about that coming from the head of the CIA, I'm not sure I'd use that language. Sometimes they have had literally killer graphics. Anyway, in other words, he doesn't like to read because he's a child, so we have to keep drawing pictures for him. It continues to get better. Pompeo says, well, the president, quote, prefers to get to the core of the issues quickly. In other words, he gets bored easily, he gets distracted, and you have to entertain him and do some juggling and then go, okay, here's all of North Korea in 30 seconds or less. And then Trump, no wonder, comes out and goes, nobody knew this, but it turns out North Korea is complicated. Really, knucklehead. I love that this is coming from his top guys. These are barely concealed as, what are we going to do? The guy's a moron. We're trying our best. So here's another great quote from Pompeo. That's our task, right? To deliver the material in a way that he can best understand the information we're trying to communicate. Wow! That's better than if you just called him an imbecile. He's like, well, we try to communicate with the president in a language he can understand. Pretty pictures, graphics, maps. Hey, Donnie, it's briefing time. Oh, right after nap time. Okay, now don't get cranky on me. Oh, Donnie, here's a picture. This is what North Korea looks like. Oh, I'm already bored. Okay. Oh, such unbelievable embarrassment. Now, Trump doesn't really deny any of this, but although he does say, some of my favorite quotes of all time, you know, I'm like a smart person. I don't have to be told the same thing in the same words every single day for the next 8 years. That was in reference to intelligence briefings. You know, I'm like a smart person. Agree to disagree. Who says I'm like a smart person? So that was during the campaign when they said, hey, if you're one of the top candidates, Republican, Democrat, you get the intelligence briefing every day. You're supposed to get it every day. He didn't want it every day. He just wanted it once or twice a week because he was bored and he didn't like paying attention to it. He's like, I don't need it every day. I'm like a smart person. All right. We go back to the CIA director. It says Trump prefers free-flowing conversations over listening to his briefers teach lessons. It's a very oral, interactive discussion as opposed to sitting there and reading from a text or a script. In other words, we have to talk slowly because he's a child. He doesn't like to read, and he doesn't like to be taught his lessons. You are arguably the most powerful man on earth, but you don't even want to take a minute to figure out what in the world is going on globally. Remember when you used to say idiotic things like, okay, when I get in office, I'm going to figure out the difference between the Shia and the Sunni? So good, it's going to make your head spin. I'm going to know it as soon as I'm in office. Now they're like, okay, now here's Hamas and here's Hezbollah as an example, right? Or here are our allies in the Sunni world and the Shia world, etc. Oh, come on, where's the maps? Oh, I want to go back to nap time. These are not liberal critics. These are top intelligence officials telling you this stuff. And even Trump himself, he says, I don't need, 200-page reports on something that can be handled on a page. Oh, God help us all. There's no one in charge. There's no adults. There's no responsible people. There's a man-child in office going, I don't want to read. I don't want to read. God help us all. Trump again says, quote, I like bullets, or I like as little as possible. But you're the president. You're the commander-in-chief. Sometimes you can't explain a complicated situation like North Korea in a bullet or in under a page. God help us all. The Washington Post says Trump has also encouraged his briefers to include as many visual elements as possible. And then finally we go to Daniel Coates, who's the director of national intelligence. By the way, Pompeo, Coates, massive right-wingers. These are Trump appointees. They're political appointees. They're not guys that are left over from the bureaucracy that are making fun of him behind his back. These are his boys. So Coates says, well, sometimes pictures do say 1,000 words. They have to draw it to the man-child president. Okay, Donnie. Okay, this is North Korea. It is next to... You're not going to believe this, Donnie. South Korea. Okay, wait. I know you're losing patience. South Korea's on our side. North Korea's against us. Did you get that in? Oh, somebody draw him a picture. Oh, God help the whole world. We have an absolute imbecile as our president. You don't like ads? I hear you, brother. You know how you can avoid ads for the Young Turks? Become a Young Turks member. You get all the content ad-free. tytnetwork.com/join. We got drums over at the White House. Well, I don't want to say the word rats. I do want to say they're a sinking ship. And whatever those vermin happen to be, they appear to be heading for the exits. Some running on their own volition, some being pushed out, where his communication director falls in there. Well, you be the judge as I tell you this story. CBS News reporting the White House is preparing a plan to restructure communications and possibly staffing for when President Trump returns from his overseas trip. So, and now he has returned, and all of a sudden there is a departure. Oh, interesting. CBS News has confirmed from two sources that 3 leakers of classified information at the White House have been identified and are expected to be fired. Drums. Okay, let's continue on this. Last week, the Trump campaign released an email to supporters entitled Sabotage, and that's actually, I screamed that because it's in capital letters, in which the campaign said there are people within our own unelected bureaucracy that want to sabotage President Trump and our entire America First movement. Man, lots of internal dramas here. Is this guy one of them? Well, let's find out today. President Donald Trump's communications director, Mike Dupke, is resigning from the White House. They're kicking him out. They're showing him the door. They're kicking him out the door. What could he do? So, was he one of the leakers? I don't know. Apparently, Trump was mad at him for other reasons as well. That's what we're going to get into some political reporting in a second. Stay with Huffington Post for a second. Dupke didn't give a reason for his departure, but multiple media outlets reported that it was because he was largely isolated from the president's steadfast inner circle. So let me explain what parts of that are true and untrue. Now, when you don't give a reason for your departure, that means it was bad. So you didn't even have time to come up with a BS excuse of like, oh man, my stomach hurt, the dog ate my homework, and my wife sprained her ankle, and my family, I gotta go take care of my family, right? And that is like, hey, dude, you gotta pack your stuff, and you send me a letter telling me how proud you were of working here, and it was such an honor. Okay, now go, get out. So that's partly what happened here. In terms of, is it because he didn't have much internal support? Well, partly so, as you see here, that the only guy that apparently had his back was Sean Spicer, which is clearly not enough. But that's not the reason for his departure. It's that when he got into some trouble and they wanted to make him the scapegoat, he didn't have enough political clout to be able, and enough allies in the White House to be able to survive. So that's what happened here. So, but why was he in trouble in the first place? Well, another Republican strategist, now this is from The Hill, another Republican strategist close to the White House said Trump was annoyed at Dubke after the aide told aides last month, there is no Trump doctrine. Yeah, Trump is so funny, man. What's the Trump doctrine? Oh, of course, there's no Trump doctrine. He says one thing, then he says the exact opposite in the next sentence, or sometimes within the sentence, let alone the next day or the next week. So what would a Trump doctrine be? We're against trade deals, except we're totally in favor of them. We're going to show China that you can't do currency manipulation, except we're going to let them do currency manipulation. And the list goes on and on and on. What in the world would be the Trump doctrine? If you press Trump on it at this very moment, he wouldn't be able to tell you himself. And he's Trump of the Trump doctrine. But nonetheless, Dubke says what is clearly obvious. He says, how come he gets to say there's no Trump doctrine? How dare he? Well, the knucklehead, what is it then? I don't know. But that sounds embarrassing. Yeah, it's embarrassing because you're embarrassing. So sources say Trump stewed over the remark reported then by Politico. In the weeks that followed, he told friends and associates he didn't feel like Dubke was doing a good job. He gives these guys in the communications department an absolute nightmare of a job, no-win situation. He tells them to go and lie on one particular topic, and then he will tweet the opposite sometimes within hours, sometimes within minutes of him sending out those folks with certain marching orders. He doesn't tell them ahead of time what kind of trouble he's going to get into. He doesn't tell them what the strategy should be. That is an impossible job. And then when you don't somehow show Donald Trump in an excellent light, he goes, this is a Dubke guy. Doesn't even know what the Trump doctrine is. Okay, what is it? I don't know, but Dubke! Okay, as White House sources, as a result, Dubke became the fall guy. He never recovered. And he's a child. Trump is nothing but a child, man. It wasn't me. It was Dubke. It was Dubke. Who thinks it was actually Dubke? Nobody thinks that. He was around in the White House for only 3 months, came in as communications director, and was he a leaker? I don't know. You know, it's possible he was one of the leakers. Everybody in the White House is leaking, so you can't swing a bat in the White House, which, by the way, you shouldn't do, and not hit a leaker. So I don't know if they fired him because of the leaker or because Trump is a child. Probably the combination of the two. And then, but Dubke's allies, presumably, as they're leaking this to The Hill, say that he wanted to leave too. Now that's standard when you're shown the door, but he does have a good case to make here. Last quote for you guys. Another source close to Dubke said the appointment of Mueller as special prosecutor was, quote, the last straw. In other words, vermin meets sinking ship. It's like, I'm getting blamed for things that makes no sense whatsoever. Did I leak? Probably everybody's leaking. And the whole ship is leaking! We're going to run into an iceberg. There's a special prosecutor now. You want to fire me? Great. Pull the chute. Why am I leaving? I didn't bother coming up with a reason. I got to go. So, Dubke had to go, and now he's gone. He won't be the last one. There'll be a lot more people heading for the exit soon, as Trump loves blaming other people for his problems. Plus, they are leaking. Plus, he and the entire administration is in a world of trouble. Membership helps fund the Young Turks. You know one great thing about that? That means we're not accountable to anyone but you guys. That's why we're strong together, because we built this show around you. Come build it even bigger and better at tytnetwork.com/join.
Get into Olive Garden now for our lunch duo. Choose your favorite pasta, piadina, or sandwich. It all comes with our never-ending soup or salad and all the breadsticks you want. Starting at just $6.99. Get never-ending value for lunch today at Olive Garden.
Comedian Kathy Griffin did something that, of course, she got a lot of heat for because it involved violent imagery and it also involved a decapitated head of our president. So, oh God, that sounded really dirty. I said of our president. I think it's the first time I've said that. anyway.
Yeah. A lot of parts of the story are unfortunate, but you're right. The minute you said our president, I was like, ugh.
Right.
To be fair, I also said that about the decapitated head.
Right, exactly. Here is the photo shoot that Kathy Griffin did. It is a head resembling Donald Trump, and it's bloody and looks terrible. The photographer behind it, Tyler Shields, is defending it, even though a lot of people, Democrats and liberals included, don't like it. Shields says, some people look at it and they love it. Some people look at it and they hate it. I understand there are going to be people that hate this. It's a very touchy subject, but this is not real. We didn't kill anybody, nor do I feel anybody should be killed. It's no different from a movie. It just happens to be a still image. I hate the image. I hate Trump, but I still hate the image. I think that we've become so uncivil as a society, and we've become, everyone, like, everything's become so toxic, and we just need to reel it back in a little bit and just calm down with, like, the violent rhetoric, the violent imagery, you know, inciting people. It's just not a good idea.
No, I'm disgusted by it, and it's a super obvious ploy to get attention, and it's super cheap. Come on, Kathy Griffin. I know you're desperate for attention, and like your whole career is based on that. But don't do this. This is gross. Yeah. And for the artists, it's not much of an art. That's not a statement. And we've covered a lot of anti-Trump art, which we appreciate, which I think is really clever. Like when they put the emoluments clause of the Constitution on the Trump Hotel in D.C., right? But they did it. They did it through lights so that it's not permanent.
Right.
Really clever. Got a lot of attention. Is a smart point to make. A decapitated head doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? What are you trying? No, take it off. I hate it so much. I can't stand it. Right. So now, look. Whenever I look at stuff like this, I always think, what if the shoe was on the other foot? Mm-hmm. If some right-wing asshole had a decapitated head of Obama that they held up, oh my God, how repulsive would that be? And so in this case, it's equally repulsive. Don't do that. It makes you look like the bad guys. And if you think that that's fun or clever, you are. That's not what how we should be protesting the president. It's really gross. And the other thing that gets under my skin is, it's like a look at me, daddy, look at me. Everybody now is forced to talk about me because I'm such an asshole.
Yeah, it's just a bad idea all around. But look, to be fair to those on the left, a lot of people criticized her for doing this. It's not just us. Alyssa Milano was another person who was pretty aggressive in tweeting about it and showing that she disagreed with this image. She's like, I'm sorry, but that's totally inappropriate and so very offensive. And I have to believe you're smart enough to know better. So... and
I'm not convinced that she's smart enough to know better.
Yeah, and for her part, after Kathy Griffin tweeted that image, she followed it up with another tweet saying that she would never condone or support violence. But still, I mean, that's a violent image, and you're right. I mean, if you want to make a political statement, that's not the most effective way to go about it.
Just every time, guys, think about what if the shoe was on the other foot. Imagine if they did that to Hillary Clinton's head. Oh, come on.
I mean, it's disgusting, but
No, it's gross. It's absolutely gross. And it makes you look like you're the bad guys again, because I think in this case you are, and you lose the moral high ground. Man, you have to work really hard to lose the moral high ground to Donald Trump. But they did it.
Yeah.
Young Turks membership creates independent media.
Believe me.
No ads.
Believe me.
All the shows.
Believe me.
On demand.
Believe me.
Support independent media.
Believe me.
It's awesome. Tremendous. You'll love it.
Believe me.
And by the end, you'll be thinking,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
tytnetwork.com/join.
How long's that been going on?
For a while, I guess. What's the secret? You heard something. It's coming.
What is it? I don't know.
The owner of the Giants just confirmed something that a lot of people suspected, but weren't completely sure about. Now, when it comes to Colin Kaepernick, of course, he hasn't been signed yet, and some have suspected that the reason why is because he made some pretty strong political statements by refusing to stand for the national anthem, and of course he did so to raise awareness about Black Lives Matter. Now, every team has said, no, we didn't, sign him because he's not that great of a player. We had to go in a different direction. But here's what John Mara, owner of the Giants, had to say. All my years being in the league, I never received more emotional mail from people than I did about that issue. If any of your players ever do that, we are never coming to another Giants game. It wasn't 1 or 2 letters. It was a lot. It's an emotional issue for a lot of people, more so than any other issue I've run into. So essentially he's saying, NFL fans don't really like what Kaepernick did, and so maybe that played a little bit of a role in our decision to not sign him.
Okay, so one, I'm glad he's finally admitted it, and that it is a political decision that the Giants are making, and most of the owners are making. And the owners previously had talked to reporters before Kaepernick even went on the market, back during the season last year when he was with the 49ers, and said, we're never ever going to sign that guy, and it doesn't have anything to do with football. We just don't like him. So when Mara talks about how NFL fans don't like him, no, some NFL fans are upset with him. Others love what he did. But you're deciding to go with the people who are upset. And should Colin Kaepernick be in the NFL? Look, I've talked about this a lot. He's as a football fan, Kaepernick was a little disappointing because he had enormous potential, and then some mediocre results near that. Does that mean that he shouldn't be on a team? Are you kidding me? There's at least 8 teams where he would be the better starting quarterback. But when you go into the bench and you go into your second string and third string quarterback, you're telling me that he's not better than any of the second string quarterbacks in the NFL or third string. If you're a football fan, you can't possibly make that claim.
Right.
So you know that that's not true. You know you take him as your second or third quarterback in a second, and because he has huge upside potential. And so if you don't say that, you don't know football at all.
He reminds me of the modern day Dixie Chicks, which, by the way, the whole Dixie Chicks debacle didn't happen that long ago. It was when they protested Bush's decision to do a preemptive war in Iraq, right? And people lost it. And so if you are in the entertainment or sports industry and you decide to get political about an issue that you're passionate about, you're immediately cast off as toxic, right? And dangerous and controversial. But I do find it super interesting that the Giants seem to have a problem signing someone like Kaepernick, who did not do anything illegal, did not do anything violent, okay? But they had no problem with Josh Brown. I mean, they let him go last year, but homeboy beat his wife, right? On several occasions, or at least was abusive to his wife and admitted so in a letter where he wrote, I have physically, verbally, and emotionally abused my wife, Molly, right? But that's okay. Suspending him for 1 game, that's enough. But when Kaepernick does something political, oh, well, he's toxic, can't sign him.
Look, I love America. We have the flag in the background oftentimes on the show. But part of America is allowing dissent. If you don't understand that, then you don't actually love America. You want to live in a country that doesn't allow dissent. And that's incredibly un-American. So, of course somebody should sign Kaepernick, and what they're doing to him is a total injustice, and this is an admission of that. Young Turks now has over 6 billion lifetime views. You know who did that? You did that. We're now larger than CNN, ABC, you name a news network online, we're larger than them. And you built all that as everyone scoffed and didn't believe. And here we are, guys, thanks to you. Build independent media together with us at tytnetwork.com/join. The red door stays locked all the time. What's you see?
Okay.
It comes at night. Rated R.
A scuffle ensued on the House floor in Austin, Texas, after House members were debating SB 4. Now, this is legislation that was signed into law by Governor Greg Abbott that essentially bans sanctuary cities in the state of Texas. Now, as lawmakers got together, there was a protest outside with constituents showing that they were extremely upset that this had now become law. It does ban sanctuary cities, allows police to question anyone they detain about their immigration status, and compels local officials to comply with federal requests to detain individuals in state and local law enforcement facilities. Now, as this protest was happening, a lawmaker by the name of Representative Matt Rinaldi decided to go up to his fellow Democrats and essentially threaten the protesters. Here's what Representative Philip Cortez said. We were just on the floor talking about SB 4 protests, and State Representative Matt Rinaldi came up to us and made it a point to say, quote, I called ICE on all of them, and this is completely unacceptable. We will not be intimidated. We will not be disrespected.
So Rinaldi sees some Latino protesters and thinks, well, they must be illegals.
By the way, I don't even believe for a second that they were all Latino protesters, right? He just saw protesters who were speaking out against SB 4, and he just assumed that they're all undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, that's, by the way, so preposterous. You think undocumented immigrants show up to a government building with signs? Okay. Is it possible that one person there was? I don't know, right? But certainly Rinaldi doesn't know. How the hell would you know by just looking at him? He sees Latinos and goes, oh, yeah, the illegals. And then turns around and goes, well, what racism? I don't know. I see brown people, and I call the government and tell them to remove them from my country, having no idea if they have papers, don't have papers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm calling it like I see it. Yeah, I know. That's the problem.
So Representative Ramon Romero Jr. says he saw the crowd and he saw illegals. He saw people that, whether he likes to accept it or not, in his heart, he has hate for those people and he wants to see them gone. He wants to see them gone so much to the point that he called ICE. Now, things got super heated on the House floor to the point where, cue the video, all of a sudden, and things started to get, it at least appears things started to get a little physical. No one's throwing punches or anything, but everyone gets together and starts arguing. Apparently, there were some threats as well. Representative Justin Rodriguez says there was a threat made from Representative Rinaldi to put a bullet in one of my colleagues' heads. That kind of threatening language, he needs to be called out and held accountable for. Okay, so Rinaldi responded back to that and said, no, someone threatened my life. It's impossible to tell who's telling the truth and who's lying, but this did lead to some constituents calling Democratic lawmakers in Texas and essentially threatening them or saying really hideous things about immigrants. So let's go to the video from Representative Cesar Blanco. He shared this on Twitter. It was one of the constituents calling and sharing his thoughts on immigrants.
Sure. Yeah. I stand with Matt Rinaldi and fuck the illegal alien sticks.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
White power.
Okay.
Yeah, they seem quite thoughtful.
Yeah, don't thank him. That was such a Democratic thing to do, by the way.
Oh, yeah. You said something horrible and heinous. Thank you very much for calling.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, okay, no.
Go fuck yourself. How about that?
That would have been another way to go. I know that's not the Democratic way. Okay, so look, Rinaldi says, oh, they threatened me first, that's why, according to the other legislators, threatened to put a bullet in another legislator's head. Problematic, right? Rinaldi says, I thought maybe somebody in the crowd was saying that they were illegal. Why would they say that? Right? Like, you can choose to believe anyone you want, and if you're a right-winger, you're going to believe Rinaldi. But it's a weird thing for one of the protesters to randomly be like, I'm illegal!
No, look, I think that that's actually a possibility, because in some protests and demonstrations, people who are not documented. Undocumented immigrants will try to, be courageous and come out there and say, look, I'm undocumented. Do I look like a threat to you? They're trying to make a point. So that's a possibility.
Yeah, Rinaldi's like, of course you do. You're brown. So he called ICE on all of them. But look, the reason I bring that up is, so if you want to hang on to a fig leaf pretense for that, that's fine. But what Rinaldi's actually trying to do is intimidate people. So if you show up and you're Latino or you're going to protest me, I'm going to call ICE on you. And I don't care if you are or are not undocumented. I have no way of proving or unproving that, right, or disproving that. And I claim somebody said that. Whether they did or not, you can't prove that, right? So, but what I'm going to do is once I call ICE, I'm going to have them clear all of you guys out. And you're going to be guilty until proven innocent. So then, do you carry your papers around with you? I don't even know. What is that, like, my birth certificate? Where the hell is my birth certificate? I don't know. Do you know?
I think one of the more important things to take away from this story is, while Republicans like to pretend like they're tough guys, in reality, they're gigantic pussies, right?
Wow.
Because here's what a strong person does not do. see a protester or a protest and then get so like up in arms about it that you have to call federal officials to deal with it, right? That's what a pussy does, right? You can't handle people protesting. You're that much of a weak man that you can't handle people practicing their constitutional rights and protesting legislation that you might have supported. You can't handle that? It hurts your feelings that bad? You're a pussy.
And it's an un-American move. When the Tea Party does protests, they're like, oh, that's good American citizens. Oh, yeah, I love that, right? When people they don't agree with do protests, like, oh my God, call the officials, call the feds, call ICE. So which one is it? Look, by the way, we are consistent. Tea Party, have at it, Hoss. Of course you can do protests. If somebody in the Tea Party decided they were going to sit for the national anthem because they were upset at what happened to the Bundys, okay, that's your right. You're an American. You want to go do a protest? That's God bless. Just don't bring weapons and point it at cops, which is what the guys at the Bundy Ranch did, and they did it in Oregon. You see, could you imagine if these protesters in Texas
showed up with
brought weapons and pointed it at the officials? How quickly would they have been imprisoned? Right? Well, they're like, no, we're just going to take over this federal government building for a couple of months. It's not how it would have worked, and you know. We're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks. You power this show. Together, we've built something amazing. We've broken stories like the Donna Brazil story the mainstream media wouldn't break. We built the studio, we built this network. It's now #1. All thanks to you guys. Let's come build it even bigger and stronger. tytnetwork.com/join. What if you could ride a beam of light across the universe? A wave arrangement transcending time and space. Time would seem frozen. Distance would become irrelevant. In a lifetime, you could travel the furthest reaches of space. Where would you want? What would you discover?
Police officer who shot and killed Philando Castile has been charged and will go through trial. He's been charged with second-degree murder along with 2 other lesser charges. Now, the cop who has been charged is Geronimo Yanez. And for those of you who might have forgotten the Castile situation, he was killed July 6th of last year during a traffic stop in the St. Paul suburb of Falcon Heights. The shooting's gruesome aftermath was streamed on Facebook by Castile's girlfriend, who was in the car along with her young daughter. We're going to bring back the video for you guys just to either refresh your memory or let you know exactly what went down for those of you who might have missed the story when it was making headlines last year. But keep in mind that Philando Castile, the black passenger in the car, was a licensed gun owner. In fact, he had a permit to carry. And when the cop had stopped them, he told the police officer, "I have a weapon," giving him a warning. And it didn't matter because Yanez decided to shoot him anyway.
Yeah, and he said, "Look, I'm licensed to carry it.
Right.
I'm telling you so that you don't perceive it as a threat, basically." That's why he was giving him the warning. And at that point, there's apparently new video that'll come out in trial.
Right.
And you can see that Yanez keeps yelling, like, "Don't pull it out." And he's saying, "I'm not pulling it out." And then next thing you know, he shot him 7 times. So
keep in mind that the couple's child was in the back seat as this incident occurred. We're about to show you the video. It's difficult to watch. It is graphic. But for those of you who want to see it, here it is.
Stay with me. We got pulled over for a busted tail light in the back. And the police he's covered. He killed my boyfriend. He's licensed. He's licensed to carry. He was trying to get out his ID and his wallet out his pocket, and he let the officer know that he had a firearm and he was reaching for his wallet, and the officer just shot him in his arm. We're waiting for that. I will, sir. No worries. I will. He just shot his arm off. We got pulled over on Larpener.
Told him not to reach for it. I told him to get his hand out.
You told him to get his ID, sir, and his driver's license. Oh my God! Please don't tell me he's dead. Please don't tell me my boyfriend just went like that.
Your hands where they are, please.
Yes, I will, sir. I'll keep my hands where they are. Please don't tell me this, Lord. Please, Jesus, don't tell me that he's gone. Please don't tell me that he's gone. Please, officer, don't tell me that you just did this to him. You shot 4 bullets into him, sir. He was just getting his license and registration, sir.
she gets more upset, understandably so, as it goes along.
Yeah.
When it dawns on her that no, he's really going to die, and he did. And he had told him to get the cop had told him to get his wallet, and so he's trying to get his wallet, and the cop keeps yelling at him
to get his ID specifically.
Yeah, he says, "Don't pull it out." And the last words of Castile after he gets shot, which is apparently in the new video that's going to come out in trial, because that's from the officer's dash cam,
right,
is going to show you what happened before the shooting and during the shooting. Castile's last words were, "I wasn't reaching for it." Because damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't get your ID, you're in trouble. If you go to get your ID, you get shot. If you don't tell me you have a licensed weapon, you're in a world of trouble and you can get shot. If you do tell me you have a licensed weapon, you get shot anyway.
Yeah.
And Castile had been pulled over dozens of times before, not for legitimate things. No, hey, tail light, this, that, the other thing. Constantly harassed. He was a worker at a local school at the cafeteria for 32. He's 32 years old. Been there for years and years and years. You can't do anything right. No matter what you do, you get shot.
Even if you own a firearm in a legal way, by the way, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't remember the NRA coming out and speaking against what happened to Philando Castile, who legally had a weapon, and warned the cop ahead of time.
If the NRA was a legit organization who actually cared about gun owners, they would have lost it over Philando Castile. They would have made him their poster boy for the big government, with their jackbooted thugs, stuff that they've said in right-wing circles before, and how it's government overreach, and look at what they did to a good American who is licensed to own a gun, and warned the cop exactly as he was supposed to do by law. NRA, where are you? Not raising much of a stink over this. Interesting.
So let's talk a little bit about the trial and how things are expected to play out, because I think that is important. As I mentioned earlier, Yanez, who is Latino, is charged with second-degree manslaughter, punishable by up to 10 years in prison. He's also charged with 2 lesser counts of endangering safety by firing his gun near Castile's girlfriend, Diamond Reynolds, and her daughter. Now, in order for prosecutors to prove successful in this case, they have to show he acted with culpable negligence, that he was reckless and acted unreasonably for the situation. The defense is planning on bringing up Philando Castile's blood tests and how they indicated that he had traces of marijuana, and so they're going to try to make it seem as though he was stoned during this encounter, which is why the cop's life was in danger. Also, keep in mind, just to look at the statistics overall and look at the broader picture, since the beginning of 2005, 81 officers nationwide have been charged with murder or manslaughter. Only 81. Since 2005, a little more than a third were convicted, 15 by jury and 14 by guilty plea. So it is very rare for a cop to actually be charged, and B, once he is charged, to be convicted for the charges against him. And that's partially because the jury is usually uncomfortable finding a cop guilty when he or she is thought of someone who has to make a split-second decision.
Yeah, almost always they use the defense that they had no choice but to do what they did. Now, you saw the tape there. It appeared that he had plenty of choice. There was 1,000 things he could have done. He could have said, get out of the car. He could have not panicked. He could have not shot into that car. Like, if a guy says, hey, I have a licensed weapon, he's trying to give you a heads up. Let's not have a miscommunication here. That should cue you that you have other choices, that there's many other choices that you can have. But oftentimes they go free because they say, well, how can you question a split-second decision there? Yeah, I can question it. And I think the charge here is exactly right. It's not a homicide. He didn't mean to go kill Philando Castile that day. He doesn't know Philando Castile.
Right.
He had no relationship to Philando Castile. Yes, it was a horrific miscommunication, and but you can't miscommunicate and kill someone like that. That's second-degree manslaughter. It was exactly reckless and acting unreasonably in that situation.
I just feel like, look, I mean, obviously, you look at a situation like that and you can talk about what you would have done, and you don't know how you would react personally in a situation like that. But I feel like if I were a cop and I genuinely felt threatened because this guy legally has a gun, I would ask him, where's the gun? And I would take the gun. Right? I would take the gun away from him. If I genuinely think he serves a threat, I wouldn't say, hey, get me your ID, and then proceed to shoot him because I think he might be reaching for his gun. That just doesn't make any sense. But it's just such a devastating story, and we've done so many of these stories in the past, and for some reason, that one gets to me the most because of the way his girlfriend is reacting to it, because she's forced to remain calm because she knows that any sudden movement could threaten her own life and her daughters. And in the meantime, I mean, her boyfriend's dying next to her. I mean, how can you not put yourself in her shoes? Like, I think about how I would feel if my husband was shot next to me, right?
And if you went to even comfort him, he could be perceived as reaching for the weapon.
I couldn't handle a situation like that.
The thing that drives me crazy about this case is damned if you do, damned if you don't. You want to talk about having no choices? Philando Castile had no choice. He kept getting pulled over for incredibly minor infractions, and oftentimes they wouldn't even charge him because they just pulled him over because he was black. And so I know that there's some people who are denialists out there. No. There's no racial discrimination at all in the country. They just happen to coincidentally pull him over dozens of times and not give him any penalty at all, because they really had absolutely nothing on him. But if you keep pulling over black people over and over and over again when they didn't do anything wrong, he's just a cafeteria worker. He's everybody in the community vouches for him. Well, if you keep pulling him over, at some point you're going to have a situation like this. So we have to have just some sort of common decency to one another. And this is not how you do it. I mean, my God, if you were worried that about anybody who had a gun and the cops could just shoot him and kill him on the spot, you'd kill a giant percentage of the country.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 250 million guns in the country. But obviously, there are different standards for different folks. And if you're in a different situation and you've got a weapon, well, then, you're a good, upstanding American citizen, exercising your Second Amendment rights. If you're Philando Castile, you're dead in your own car. And last thing is, if you watch the rest of that video, they let him bleed out. He keeps pointing the weapon at him. They don't get him help for so long. If he had just rushed at that point to go get help, maybe they could have saved his life. But they let him bleed out. That's what we're talking about. There's no respect for human life anymore. So is that second-degree manslaughter? Well, the court and the jury will have to decide. But to the naked eye, that's what it certainly appears to be. You don't like ads? Well, I hear you, brother. Did you know that you can become a Young Turks member and get the full 2-hour show every day on demand, plus so many other network shows, all ad-free for just $10 a month. Give it a shot right now. tytnetwork.com/join.
What does the support of Sealy's exclusive Posturepedic technology look like? Well, imagine this stack of weights is a body. Now, the average head weighs 11 pounds. So we'll put a 10-pound weight here. And we'll put a 45-pound weight right here. Now, let's say this person really loves pizza, so we'll put a little extra weight right here as well. Now let's add arms and some legs. Perfect. Now at least 50% of your body weight rests right here when you sleep. So Sealy's exclusive Posturepedic technology reinforces the center to support your back and core. Notice how the weights stay level across the entire bed. Support where you need it most. Sealy, proud supporter of you.